What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Strength Solutions Podcast. We're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. Check us out on YouTube. Hit the subscribe, like button, and comment down below. Our website is strengthsolutionspodcast.com. We have free blogs, guides, and programs for purchase. Email future fitness questions, strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com. Social media, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, Strength Solutions Podcast. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Okay, dude. So, what are ways that you can improve your squat without squatting more?
Okay, indirectly. Indirect ways to
because everybody's like, just squat more, just practice squat. But there's things that you can do to make your squat a lot better. True. Without having to squat.
Yeah, I think, definitely for me, one of the things that helped me the most was, and I know this would be pretty simple, but just working on mobility. I know when I first started working out and stuff like that, I had this whole 20-minute routine I would do before every workout session. And I really was diligent about doing it all. And I think at the beginning that is really important to have a consistent mobility routine until you can just get to a point where, I guess maybe just squatting more will help you with your squat. But one of the things I find that's most difficult is just getting down to depth, right? Feeling stable, not losing your balance. Getting full activation all over. So first, one of my things would be mobility. There's a jillion more though.
I think we could get a little bit more specific. Okay, first ankle mobility. What exercises would you do for your ankle mobility, like the combat stretch?
Right.
Maybe even doing calf raises a little bit in different angles too. Leg press calf raise,
right.
Seated calf raise, standing single leg calf raise, just doing calf raises, but through a full range of motion.
Right. I don't think that we think often enough about how important the calves are in a squat. I know one of the ways that my calves grew the most was when I started doing step ups, and which is, at the end of the day, it's just kind of like a single leg squat. And that really blew my calves up more than doing any, sort of calf raise on a machine or something like that. But again, going through full range, making sure that my step was high enough to sort of get me through that bottom position.
Would you say it stepped up your workout routine?
I guess I would. I guess I would have to. We should have one of those. Why don't we have one of those ones? It's funny. That brings to mind one time I was working out with a friend and he was showing me this program that he was doing. And it was a lower body split thing. And looking at it, I remember the first exercise on there was calf raises. And at the time I was like, what? That's so stupid. You should be doing your biggest compound movement first.
Because that's what we learned.
Right. Because that's, every program I've seen is set up this way. And it wasn't until later that I kind of thought about it and talked to other people. I think I'd even mentioned it to you one time. And you were the one who was kind of like, well, maybe it's to get more activation, beforehand. And I was like, oh, fuck. You might be right.
So another thing, let's say you're barbell back squatting, things to help strengthen your back, back extension, reverse hyper. Those are really good exercises that are going to go right back into your barbell back squat to really help you. I don't think enough people talk about core stability and your lower back being strong when squatting.
Yeah, because, I will kind of point this out. So I feel like in a back extension, there's multiple ways to do it, right? But I think one of the ways that people primarily do it is kind of it's sort of what I call dolphining, right? Where they'll really extend the back and then come down and extend the back. And that is a good way to do it. But one of the ways that I like to do it is try and almost think of it like a hinge process where I'm keeping my spine more neutral and I'm kind of coming down over and really driving my glutes and hips into the back extension board and pulling up into that top position. Because if you think about a deadlift or a squat, and if you kind of, I don't know, let's say you record yourself and just cover up your legs, right? It's a back extension, right? That's pretty much what you're doing the whole time. And so really, bulletproofing your lower back and and keeping it super, super stable, right? While moving through movement like that really helps. And I think that I honestly would say not so much for my deadlift, but for my squat helped me able to keep my form a lot better.
Yeah. And what you're really trying to say is you're moving through your hips. So you're keeping your core steady.
Right.
When you do a barbell back squat, you don't want the core to move at all.
No.
Whether it's curved a little bit or straight, You want the core to be
It's got to
nice
stay
and tight
in that same position,
in
right?
that same position.
Yeah. Another one that I like to do either as priming or whenever I feel like I just can't activate my core enough is a sumo press, right?
Okay.
We're renaming it. Kind of put in, and I like to do a kettlebell, and I'll put a kettlebell on my abdomen, just because I feel like it's more pinpoint, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And I really have to push against it, or else it's gonna be all like, so.
Yeah.
But that's another great one, especially if you're.
I think if you look it up, it's called a fat
girl press.
right?
Yeah. But sumo press is another name, right?
Yeah. Or fat guy press.
Fat guy press. Fat person press.
Fat person, yeah.
And so using that, and especially I would say that this is even more important if you're someone that uses a belt for squatting, especially if you're trying to get to those heavier weights and things like that. It is a great way to learn how to kind of utilize the belt and sort of press against it and create that intrinsic pressure to keep your spine more stable.
Yeah. And so we did the core, we did the calves, but now let's talk about the upper body, the thoracic spine.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite exercises to do for this is a behind the neck press.
Yeah.
And it's because that's where the barbell is going to end at the end of the day
That's
when
where
you're
it's
behind the barbell back squat, right?
Right.
So why not work on that and work on your thoracic extension a little bit more?
Mm-hmm. Ever since we did behind the neck press that one time at the gym together, I've been kind of utilizing it a little bit more in my lifts, whether I'm doing an overhead press or, like you said, a squat. I'll, do a few reps with the bar, maybe adding on a little bit of weight or something like that, just to get really, really warm back there. Because even if I'm squatting and I'm just going under the bar for the first time, I'm like, God damn, I'm like super tight. And I remember talking to another trainer one time, and he was kind of saying that if you're putting the bar on your back and, you're kind of in a position where your elbows are sort of flared out and things, you're kind of almost pushing the bar forward, right?
Yeah.
And then you're even creating more of that forward tension as you're trying to squat down, and you're going to get more of the roundness in the back, or you're going to put more shearing pressure on the lower back vertebrae. So being able to kind of tuck the elbows underneath and get in as close as you possibly can really helps not only keep you safe, but also like your energy transfer, the bar going up.
Instead of having all energy going up, you have it going forward and then
Right. Yeah. So it just makes it really hard and even uncomfortable. And as of late, I used to low bar back squat a lot more. But I just found that, over time it was just, it's probably on me, right? Because I just couldn't hold the technique right. But now that I've kind of moved it a little bit higher up to a higher bar, it feels so much better. And, again, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, maybe that just works better for me, right? Maybe low bar just isn't something that doesn't feel that great.
That means you have weak thoracic stuff, spine mobility.
It does mean that, yeah. And so this is a good example, right? Because maybe if you're having trouble with your low bar squat, okay, well, you probably need to, low bar squatting over and over and over again isn't going to improve your thoracic mobility, right? So you got to do the indirect stuff to make that movement better.
And then the last thing I want to talk about is hip stability, right? And this is where I think women do really well, is a lot of those cable abduction, cable abductors, they really do help stabilize. Now, the way I would utilize it's not how a lot of people utilize it. They were more worried about the movement leg,
right? Versus
I would be more worried about the stability leg.
Okay, you made a good point, because one time I was working out at the gym and some of the girl trainers were there like, hey, you should come work out with us. And I was like, fuck, okay. So one of them is bodybuilder, and she was making me do some like abduction stuff with the cable machine. And I was like, dude, my stabilizing leg feels more on fire than like my actual like working quote unquote leg, And it really like kind of opened my mind a little bit, because I was like, wow, this is a fucking excellent exercise if I'm trying to get single leg stability. I don't even really care about my working leg. I'm more caring about the stability on this side, because man, my glutes were on fire and I could really feel myself working to keep myself in position. So there is, benefit and merit to those outside of just, what the exercise is itself.
Yeah. And those are 4 different areas of the body that you can just work and utilize to help with your overall squat, and then bring it back to your squat, and you'll feel much better.
I mean, I think if we could put them all together, as a little warm-up routine, it would be like, do the combat stretch, do the fat person stretch, or press, right? Do a little behind the neck. And then finally doing Was that all of them? Yeah, I think that
or
is it.
or back extensions.
Back extensions and leg abduction, right, at a cable. If you did all 5 of those before a squat, I bet you feel like really
very
primed
stable.
and ready.
Yeah. You know, America's great. Land of
Always.
opportunity and capitalism.
Oh, see.
Can I make money? You didn't see that one coming. So we have Ozempic out there, and it's doing a great job. And like fast food companies and Nabisco and all those companies are like really, their stock prices are dropping. They're not selling. Right? They're struggling really badly. But this is the beauty of capitalism. They're finding foods and chemicals to override the Ozempic. So they're fighting fire with another fire.
I know, which is kind of wild, insane, right? And I think this really, not that anybody I think was really believing this, but it kind of really exposes the fact that like, okay, these companies do not care about you. They just care about making money. At the end of the day, it's a business, it's a product that they're trying to sell. And if another product moves in, and I think they did the research, right, in the article that we had sent or read, that people who are on Ozempic don't spend as much money at the grocery store. Right? I mean, that makes sense. They're not as hungry. They're not craving as much. So they're not going to spend as much money.
Or maybe they're still buying the same things, but now it takes 2 months to get that same item versus when they used to buy it every month because they're not going through it as fast.
So it's not as consistent, right? And I'm surprised that it's actually affecting, these companies, which on another end makes me think about like, damn, how many people are taking Ozempic, man? that it's,
I mean, a lot of people are taking Ozempic.
A lot of people are taking it. And so it is interesting to see that, I think that initially they were saying that a lot of the companies were going to try and cater more toward it. Like they were going to try and make healthier items or, more protein and stuff like that. So people would be more enticed to buy. But it seems like they're kind of doing the evil route.
It's 12% of U.S. adults.
God damn, dude, that's a lot. That's insane.
Crazy. Dude.
That is so many. Oh, wow. Well, no wonder then it makes that happen. But I wonder if in a business sense, how there's been all of these recent boycotts. Have you seen these where it's like, don't buy from Amazon today or don't buy from like big businesses? I wonder if people continue to be like, no, I'm not going to buy these products. If they will sort of turn into being like, okay, well, if they're not going to buy this shit, then I guess we have to make, something they are going to buy. And so who knows,
Yeah. So I went to the store the other day in H-E-B and I saw the Coca-Cola. So it was like near like $8 per 12 pack or more.
Holy shit.
It's dropped down to under $7 in just like a month and a half.
Wow.
So like people not buying Coke brand is really already hitting them.
I hope maybe as time goes on, because I do believe in that kind of stuff, where they're like, okay, nobody buy from Amazon or nobody do whatever.
But it has to be consistent.
And it has to be consistent. And it unfortunately has to be everybody. You know what I mean? If like
and over time
for a long time. I don't think that maybe, in this time of social media, everything's like fast and oh, look at me, I'm not buying from Amazon because it's cool, and then once it stops being cool, no one cares anymore. And let's just be real, like that's what it is,
See, like the whole Amazon boycott, it's not really gonna work.
It's not gonna work because no one's gonna do it for more than that day.
That day or that week.
Or the few hours, you know what I mean?
Hours,
and so I don't think
actually I need to go buy something right now.
It's ordering on Amazon as we're talking.
Actually, it's worth at Target because you can stay away from Target. Because,
right.
They could go to Walmart. They could go to other places.
Right. Because that was right. It was like, don't buy from big corporation day, or whatever. It was like only buy local or don't buy at all. But I think if people maybe do catch on to that, if it does become a little more consistent, if people don't care so much about the virtue signaling part and more about changing things for real,
that virtue signaling.
It really is, and that's like the unfortunate truth is that that's why a lot of these things probably won't have as much of an impact as we're hoping they are, because it's not just about not buying from Amazon one day. It's about not buying from Amazon at all for months and months on months. But at this point, I think people are like reliant on a lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like they get their groceries through it, or they get their fucking health insurance, or you bought a car. You know, like we talked about all that stuff, and so it's really hard to like not do those.
I mean, Tesla's getting hit hard right now.
Oh yeah, they are, right? I heard. I won't say anything.
Yeah. We'll move on to the next one. So I know you're not very manly, right? So what is the weirdest or reason a woman has given you to say that you're not a real man?
Oh yeah, dude. I had sent that to you, right? It's
Dude,
from the
some of these. Let me give you some of these, right?
Okay, yeah.
Like one is because a guy used an umbrella.
Good God.
Another guy, I was below 5'7". Being a stay-at-home dad, he's not a real man. I was like, you don't argue enough. You're not a real man.
Bro, come on.
That sounds like toxic.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I would apologize when I fucked up. Like, don't you want a guy who apologizes? Like, to me, that's a big man.
Yeah. And it's funny because you look at some of those and let's be real, like you said, right? Like some of those are probably super extreme.
I get pedicures.
Well, no, okay. That one I don't know.
Having cats.
What?
I wore an apron when I cooked.
Bro, I've been asking for an apron, man.
Dude, it's wild what we have like. And I think a lot of people just use it because they know being a real man means a lot to a man.
Right.
And they'll use anything to kind of hurt you.
Yeah.
And so you got to get to the point where you just ignore people, man.
Either that, right? I guess at the end of the day, that really is the only option because you can't make people change, right? I can't sit here and you either leave the situation, that you're in with whoever that is, whether it's a family member, a friend, your partner. You either have to remove yourself from that situation so that you don't have to hear it anymore, or you just don't give a shit, right? Those are like literally the two options because, again, you can't make this gigantic change.
You have long hair. You're not a man.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually really, really funny. I'll give you a little example.
Oh my God, it happened.
In a way, yeah. And so one time I was at, I think I was at like fucking Old Navy or some shit like that, and I was sitting down by the dressing room because the person I was with was like trying something on. So I was sitting there and like these two they were like older ladies. They weren't old, like they weren't like 60 or 70 or something like that, but they were like older than I was.
Boomers.
Not even that,
No,
bro. And that was the thing that was kind of weird is that they weren't like super old, And so they walked by and I'm sitting there like just fucking sitting, like probably on my phone or some shit like that. And I'm assuming my hair was down or whatever it was. I'm wearing shorts so you can like see my legs, like I'm not dressed feminine or anything. Yeah. And this lady walks by and she like looks at me and I looked at her too and she was like, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were a woman." And I was like, "Why?" Like how weird. And yeah, for real. And like she said something else also and I was just like, dude, that was so weird. You know what I mean? Like I guess she just felt like she needed to make comment to me because my hair's long or something, because I was like, I'm clearly not, so it does happen, and it's one of those things where you got to just kind of laugh about it and be like, oh my God, people are so stupid, but it happens all the time,
On the bright side, I think men are doing better overall.
I do
as a generation,
think so.
as like fathers and things like that. I was at HEB and I remember thinking, my dad never went to HEB with my mom or grocery shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how many times, and I asked Amanda, she was like, yeah, my dad does it now, but not back then. And it was almost like there was this separation of family. And I saw these dads. I even saw some of the dads with their kids without the mom there. Yeah. And it's just like, wow, like men have evolved beyond the point of just, I'm going to make money and I'm going to go home and do nothing.
You know what, man, maybe I shouldn't say something like this, but I'm going to say it like this. I'm going to say this. It's just my personal experience. This has just been my personal experience. Anytime I've been sort of jabbed at, I guess, it's always been by a woman. So for my example of the hair thing, there was two ladies. I remember when my daughter was really young and I would like take her to Target or something like that. Like all the women would come by and be like, "Oh, you are you babysitting today? Like, where's mom? Like, oh, are you finally doing your part? And it was like always a woman, Always. There was no guy coming up to me and being like, bro, why is your hair long? You gay or something? You know what I mean? Never. I've never actually been told anything by like another dude.
But are you gay because you have long hair?
You know, according to this, probably. You know?
No, I don't know where that comes from.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's like a moment to like get back at people for shit that's happened to you. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what it is. You know?
Or it could be like some people have this expectation a man's only supposed to do this.
Right.
Or it's like saying a woman's only supposed to do this when there's really good women CEOs and boss babes or whatever. Yeah. But then there's other ones who are great mothers. Like, why can't we just let people be individuals at the end of the day and figure out their path?
And again, you know, I'll say I'm sure these are like extreme situations. It's not like it happens to me every damn day or something like that.
So what happened as you walked through the door, I asked you.
You know, but I've never had the desire, you know, to walk up to a woman who has, you know, her kids or something like that and being like, oh, giving dad a break from the kids, you know, like, you know, it's so fucking weird.
Or you'd be like, what, are you making all the money in the house?
Yeah, you know, I've never felt the need to do that.
You're not a real woman. You don't stay in the kitchen.
Yeah, I bet, you know, I could talk to a bunch of single dads, and I bet they've all been through the same thing that I've been through.
If you clip that one part where I just said that.
Yeah. Viral. You know, I'm going to do that on purpose, too. I'm just, Edwin believes this. Edwin's sexist? Question mark.
All right. There was a good video of this pastor in church, and he was explaining like balance of life, and he used the deadlift. I loved it because it was like fitness has so many things when it comes to real world like application.
It really does.
And it really does. He had a barbell and he was deadlifting, and it was about 200 pounds of the barbell. He's obviously a strong pastor.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. He picks it up very easy, and he's like, this is what balances life. But what happens if I throw my balance off? And so he takes off dumbbells and the weight's lighter. So let's just say it's about like 175. He's like, what do y'all think? It should be easier, right? Because it's less weight. And he was like, and he goes to try to pick it up and it's super hard. And he doesn't pick it up all the way. He's like, it's a lot harder for me to have lighter weight that's unbalanced versus me having a heavier and it's very balanced. Because life is that way too. You need to find your balance. And so he gave a great lesson of when there's an imbalance, even though it's not that big of a deal, you don't think, it creates a big problem later.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good example because I feel like a lot of times, especially like you said in fitness, you know, we think for a moment like, oh, hey, you know, this week I'm just going to be really busy, so I won't sleep as much and I got to work a lot at work and it'll be fine because I'll just catch up next week, you know, and then you're fucked for the whole month or something, you know, and I think too often, especially in American life, we kind of put work and responsibilities and things before everything else, you know, and I will say this also, and not that it doesn't apply to women, but also as men, right? You tend to do that where you're like, you know, fuck me. I got to do this for everybody else. You know, I got to make sure I work. I got to make sure I do this, pick that up. You know, you have all these responsibilities on your head. And you just kind of let your balance fall apart, you know, and then one day you're like, why am I sad and angry and pissed off at everyone? Yeah. You know,
I mean, it's just like, we can't drink water.
Oh, damn, dude. Yeah.
Dude, Jordan Side killed it with that video.
That was a pretty funny video.
But it was sad that he was like, it's sad that I have to make this video.
It was almost like frustrating. It almost made me mad watching the video because it was like, you know, it's Jordan. He's watching a bunch of like fitness influencers, and you know, one person's like, "Don't drink tap water because whatever." You know,
don't drink bottled water
because
don't drink Topo Chico because of this.
Don't drink out of a glass because
water doesn't hydrate your body.
Oh yeah, that's the stupidest one I think. And any argument that I've heard in the fitness industry is that like water is worthless, you know, and you can get all your water from food, you know, you just eat. And so.
Yeah, I want you to fucking try that, bro. Like, I guarantee you he's not trying that.
Exactly. And it's just shit that people say, I guess. And while all of them, I guess, have some merit, right? Like, it's like, okay, drinking out of a plastic bottle, yeah, I'm sure it's probably not that good. You know, okay, as tap water, maybe not as good as filtered water, maybe. But I think at the end of the day, we're missing the point, right? And we're demonizing something that's probably really healthy, probably something that people don't drink at all anyway, right? And you're making the wrong thing the problem, you know, you're making water the problem as opposed to, I don't know, all the fucking beer everybody's drinking. Like, how about we talk about that? You know? And so, man, what a silly videos.
It's wild.
I was like, I can't watch this. Piss me off.
All right. We got 2 studies. The first one, scientists identify genes that make humans and Labradors more likely to become obese. So it was the DENND1, I believe, gene. That's off the top of my head. It's something like that. And so it just showed whether the owner was someone who got the Labrador to move a lot or got the Labrador and just didn't do much, that in this gene, they were just more likely to eat more regardless. And there's something that's in humans, the same gene, that this is why people who are like, just eat less, work out hard, and regimen doesn't work for everybody because you got to set up your environment to be successful.
So this was essentially a study on the animal.
It was on the animal, but it was linking it back to humans.
How interesting. Yeah. And it is difficult, man, because
I can tell you, I have different clients that just can't be satiated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I would be like, dude, Ozempic's for you. Like,
right.
You're the candidate. Not at the dosage that they tell you to take. But
at some point, it might help you, right? And it's, it's like, I look at just the differences between like Camille and I, and I'm like, she could probably get away with eating 1 time a day and just be like, for real, bro, and just be like, fine, like literally have no food noise, like not thinking about what's for lunch, what's for dinner.
I see it in my kids.
Yeah. And then it's like, for me, I'm like food, all the damn time. And it's just the differences, and for me, like the other day, like you said, setting up your environment, I think my daughter was like, do we have any chips? Like, do we have, whatever, blah, blah. And I was like, nope. And she was like, why? And I was like, look, dude, if I buy it, you're not even going to get any because I'm just going to smash the bag, dude. Like, I can't. And so I was like, if you want it, like, I'll literally go take you to buy like a small bag or something. But I can't buy it because I got to set up my environment.
Me want chips.
Yeah, for real, bro. And I'm just like, I know if I buy it, I'm really fucking myself up and I'm not going to do it.
Dang, dude. All right. Next one. Researchers debunk common belief that women can get better muscles by timing their workouts with their menstrual cycles. Did you read this one?
I've seen a lot about this. I think I even saw a video the other day. Yeah.
In it, they talk about protein synthesis, right? And that's how they like really measured it, that you don't get more protein synthesis or not. Now, what I would say is behaviorally, they may do better working out a certain way in their cycle because they're not as tired. They have more energy during ovulation, and it has nothing to do with protein synthesis itself, but more the behavior and what load can they take during that time of ovulation versus menstrual.
It is really important. And I think it's also important to either discuss with yourself or if you have a trainer, like make sure you kind of let them know, like, because I've had clients who come in and I'm like, what the fuck is up with you, and they're like, oh, well, I'm on my period today. And I was like, bro, why didn't you tell me? We could have had an entirely different session, you know, instead of me trying to push you to do nothing. Yeah.
And it just shows it's consistency, whether you're a man or a woman, over time. And knowing yourself, knowing when to push harder. Because even though guys don't get menstrual cycles, guys still have cycles of I feel good versus I don't feel good.
Right.
And they have to go through the process as well. So fitness question number 1. Does having an injury affect the way I lift forever? It can.
It can. I mean, in some cases.
The severity of it, the PTSD.
Yeah,
you don't ever do the exercises to actually get you back to where you were.
I think you made a good point in saying like the PTSD of it, right? Because at the end of the day, an injury is traumatic, right? Your body does have a response to it, and most of the time, injuries hurt like a mother. So it's like you're like, I don't really want to do that again. It kind of really sucked, and so I find honestly that. For the most part, returning from injuries, and we both have clients who have had injuries or rehab from certain things or whatever it is. Like, I think the behavior aspect is almost the harder part. Yeah. For example, helping out Camille's mom recently, she just had surgery, and it wasn't until the surgeon like showed her the X-ray and was like, it's fine. Like structurally, there's nothing wrong.
It's all up here.
Yeah, right? Until she was like, okay, now I'm comfortable doing stuff, right? And so it's one of those things, man. Like you said, you either kind of start trying to find a way back to it, or you do just let it, and I think it all depends on the severity, like you said.
Correct. Question number 2. What is the greatest performance goal? Now, it's all depending on individual, right? I know what you're to say. But I'm going to say something different because I already know what you're going to say. The greatest performance goal is, to me, like gymnastics, being able to control your body and in space and have proprioception.
Yeah.
And especially from a longevity standpoint, to have that strength and that capability to control the body. To me, that's one of the greatest performance goals, even though I know I have another one.
Okay. You know, I think I might piggyback off of yours a little bit. I went to a circus recently.
Changes opinion.
my perspective. I went to a circus recently, a few weeks back. And dude, I mean, like like, you know, I'm a fitness guy. We both, I wish you were there because I bet we could have had a whole conversation about everything. But it was like
the way they use their bodies to balance off each other.
Watching them do all of these things and like the pure athleticism. Everybody was in like super peak fitness condition. The control, the spatial awareness, the strength, dude, it really was awe-inspiring. Like I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
Would you say it's a circus act?
Yeah, man. It was really, really interesting to see all of that kind of performance and see different aspects of it, right? Because yeah, you know, I'm sure you might be thinking that I was going to say like a strength-based goal or being able to deadlift a whole bunch or something like that. And while that is another like athletic performance type of thing, right? I don't really think it encompasses like the whole potential of the human body. You know what I mean? I think more along the lines of, like you said, these gymnastic type people, aerobic.
They have to jump. They have to like have proprioception. They have to be strong for their body, right? They have to be able to control other people's body too in the circus.
And to like show it off too. Like a lot of the times they were doing things blindfolded or whatever. And I'm just like, they just know where they're at
in space.
Yeah. They're just so in tune.
All right. Question number 3. How do I build a butt without building my legs? My legs are already bigger. This is where Brett Contreras hip thrust, the abduction, like all those type of exercise without changing and doing your squats as much.
Yeah.
Maybe you can still do your deads a little bit more because more hamstring dominant, but
fair. Maybe more of an
harder.
RDL, right?
Yeah.
Like a stallion squat is probably another good way to get that. But at the end of the day, you're just going to have to look at pure like glute isolation exercises, which again is going to be kind of hard to find. Cause I would argue that even in a hip thrust, you're still going to get hip extension, right? So your hamstrings are still going to work.
Yeah. But it's not nearly as bad.
Right. Yeah. I guess at this point it would kind of be about the most activation, right?
Yeah.
Where let's say it's 75% the glutes, 25% the whole leg, right? You're probably going to want to choose exercises like that.
All right. Question number 4. How can you get your partner to work out? I want my girlfriend to work out, but she is not coming to the gym with me. You don't, buddy. You don't.
This one is really hard, dude.
This is hard because people don't realize like you can't make anything in life. You can't force anybody to do anything. They have to come up with it at their own conclusion, whether it's fiscal responsibility, whether it's fitness, whether it's them reading more. They have to come up with the idea and they have to have the want to do something.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think also taking from examples in my own experience or from things I've heard is like trying to just motivate your partner to do a goal that they want to instead of maybe trying to do a goal that you want them to get to.
Correct.
Right. I think that happens a lot of the times too, where, you know, okay, well, my goal is to do this. So then you're just going to do what I'm going to do. Right. And no one wants to do what they don't want to do. Right. Yeah. And you know, maybe the goal at the end of the day, you got to change your perspective. Maybe she's just not going to go to the gym with you.
Maybe she wants to do yoga classes.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe she just doesn't want to do that. And I bet that you might get more from it if you're like, if you participate with them first, like if they're like, hey, I want to go to yoga class, then be like, okay, then I'll go with you. Right. And then you can start to form that sort of, I guess bond,
association,
right? Association. Yeah. Is a better word. And then, you know, you can associate it back to like, hey, you know, we were having trouble doing that one position, right? Like, man, I bet if we squatted more, you know, it would work better. And then kind of relate it back to something they already want to do. And I think that'll motivate them more to get into it.
All right, guys. If you like what we're doing, please share, like. We're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. Check us out on YouTube. Leave a comment down below. Hit the like, subscribe. Our website is strengthsolutionspodcast.com. We have free blogs and guides for purchase. Then, if you're looking for email, strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com. Social media, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, Strength Solutions Podcast. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Until next time, guys. What? Peace out.